Good morning. So glad you all can join us here in person and also online. And this stream is recorded, and so I'm hoping that the Sunday schools may be able to use this interview and information during one of your Sunday schools to help figure out if people are interested in missions, and if they are, please let them get in touch with me, Candler Rhodes, and I'm happy to speak with anybody who's wanting to learn about El Salvador. But today we have Brian Dubberly from the Salvadoran Mission Projects. He's been leading groups in country in El Salvador for 11 years, and he has been our coordinator extraordinaire for the trips that we have taken there, and he's taken very good care of us. And so he has happened to be in the United States and was able to travel here and have this time to discuss the mission trips, the activities that are going on down there, and tell us about the needs that are going on. So I'll let Brian take it away.
Okay. Thanks, Candler. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys this morning, here in person and also via the internet. I want to share just a short devotion with you guys, and then we'll be able to take questions from folks so that we can learn a little more about what it is you're curious about and how we take care of things. So I want to read a little piece of scripture from 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verses 4 and 5, and this is from the New Revised Standard Version. My speech and my proclamation were not with plausible words of wisdom, but with the demonstration of the Spirit and of power, so that your faith might rest not in human wisdom, but in the power of God. It's the word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. So this year, my motto has kind of been faith and patience. I'm sure I don't have to tell you guys or anyone else that 2020 was a difficult year for everyone, and El Salvador was no exception to that. On March 20th of last year, the president closed the country's airports and closed the country's borders so that no one could travel. And we began a mandatory shelter-at-home order that lasted just over 3 months. And a closed economy that lasted until mid-August. My wife, Ellen, some of you know Ellen, was actually in the United States when all this was happening. And I'm reminded of Gilligan's Island. They went on a 3-hour tour to on the Minnow and were stranded. My wife was on a 3-week tour, and she got stranded in North Carolina for 7 months. So my daughter and I were at home, just the two of us. And I kept reminding myself that Ellen would be back. I just needed to have faith and patience. 7 months was a little difficult, but and honestly, I have a newfound appreciation for single parents. I don't know if anyone is a single parent, but you really should have superhero capes. Because I literally, overnight, became the housekeeper, the cook, the teacher, the gardener, the playdate friend, etc., keeping our 8-year-old Camilla on task with virtual school and then entertained in her free time was a full-time job. But I just kept reminding myself to have faith and patience. When 2020 started, we had 27 mission teams on our calendar. Shandon was planning to be 2 of those teams. And the last team that we were able to host left on February 22nd. And one by one, each of the remaining teams canceled. Not knowing each month if things would get back to some resemblance of normal, it was difficult as the end of each month ended with more teams canceling. But I just reminded myself that I needed to have faith and patience. In 2019, we started assembling footers and columns of rebar for a large high school project that we began working on later in the year. We also started digging this foundation. It was going to be, or it's going to be, the Methodist High School in Awachapan. On March 20th of last year, we had to stop our work when the quarantine was enforced, and we weren't able to go back to that project until June 26th of last year when we were able to go back. However, in that time, the needs of the school changed, along with a whole bunch of other things that the COVID pandemic has forced us to adjust to. The church and school leaders decided that there was an immediate need for the high school, and the best way to meet that immediate need was through an expansion of the existing Methodist school in Awachapan. So we started in August on a project to expand backwards instead of up to the existing school with 8 new classrooms that would house the high school while we're building the high school that will be a permanent location. With financial help from folks like you here at Shandon and other churches, we've been able to do most of the building. I think there's about 10% that's still left to do. And the hope is that when students return back to in-person classes, that building will be ready for them to study in. And we had to put the large-scale high school on the back burner. But with faith and patience, we'll be back on that project soon. We have to put our faith in God's perfect plan, even when we don't understand what that plan might be. And we need to be patient and wait for his plans to materialize for us. And while a lot of the things that I've just talked about were things that were obstacles, there were also good things that happened in 2020. For example, my wife, while she was stranded in North Carolina, was able to go to her family doctor, and they found that she had a faulty heart valve. So she was able to have open heart surgery to repair it while she was here for 7 months. Also, after 6 months of being at home, just Camilla and I, we have a really strong relationship now, which is a good thing. And with continued support financially and in presence, hopefully soon in presence, the new 8 classrooms at the school will be ready for students when they're able to return, which was announced 2 days ago, that April 6th is the projected date when students will begin to go back to class. It'll be a process and gradually done, but on April 6th that will start. So faith and patience has gotten me through 2020 and the beginning of 2021, because we're still not hosting teams yet. And with all the changes, the unknowns, the surprises, the ups and downs, we need to continue having faith, in spite of the facts of what our current situation might be. After all, as followers of Christ, we walk by faith and not by sight. And I've had to constantly remind myself that God does have a perfect plan, and I need to trust in that, to have faith. Having patience gives us a chance to be open to what God is doing all around us, to wait for God to reveal his plans so that we can follow the path he has prepared for us. I want to thank Shandon for your continued support for the ministries of the Evangelical Methodist Church in El Salvador. And we are truly grateful for your prayers, your presence, and your gifts. And I have faith and patience that Shandon will be able to send a mission team, God willing, this year, but soon. And until that happens, I will patiently wait for that to materialize. Amen. So I want to open up to questions. If people have specific questions about what might be going on in El Salvador or how things have been since the pandemic started. Okay.
You talked about the children coming back on April 6th.
Mm-hmm.
Have they been able to, United States, everybody's virtual.
Right.
Have they been able to do that consistently? And has there anything been looked at to say what impact 2020 made by not being in person in school?
Okay, so the question was how the school systems in El Salvador were able to handle not being in-person classes, and what kind of effect or what kind of statistics came along with that. School did continue virtually, not for everyone. Private schools especially had a little better chance of being able to do virtual learning compared to public schools, just for the sense of technology. Our school, the Methodist school, did continue having classes. It was kind of figure it out as you go. And honestly, the vast majority of children that did virtual learning probably did them on cell phones. And while the school used the Google Classroom platform, there were also, for example, my wife teaches English at the school. While she loaded the work up onto the platform, and that was the way that you were supposed to turn in any kind of work that you did, not everyone had access to internet to be able to upload, because it takes longer, uses more data. So she was also accepting work done through social media, either by Facebook Messenger or with WhatsApp, because those apps are usually free on your cell service. So children were able to do that. She also did videos that were loaded to the Google Classroom platform, but also were available to be sent via social media. So the private schools, or the schools that had access to technology, were able to continue doing virtual school of some sort. Obviously didn't replace being in person. You didn't have the one-on-one, and it was just kind of do the best you can for the most students you can, and there's probably going to be some that fall through the cracks, and there were children that weren't able to do any of that kind of education. The public school, I think, was affected more because you've got people who are in very rural areas where there's kind of spotty cell coverage if they had cell phones. Probably not a lot of folks have internet in their homes or laptops or computers to be able to do that. Some may have had tablets, access to tablets. So the public school system, they basically lost last year. I don't know if they're going to move people up a grade or if they're just going to repeat the year. The announcement for them to go back to class on April 6th was just made on Thursday. And it's going to be a gradual process. They're not going to require anyone to go to the school. If you're able to stay at home and learn, you can do that. And they're going to do it a gradual thing. I think it's what they were saying was doing by blocks, like the younger kids will go, and then the middle school kids will go, and then the high school kids will go. And they're looking at going just partial times of the week and doing in-person and virtual. All that will probably change once it starts happening and they see what works and what doesn't work. But last month, the government started handing out laptops to public school children, starting with high schoolers. And they have free internet. So the idea is that at some point in the near future, public school children will have access to computers and will have access to that platform. I'm sure they'll get broken. I'm sure they'll get sold. I'm sure, just those kind of things happen. But I think the idea is that if you can get it into the hands as many children as you can, the access to the education will be available. Statistically, I haven't heard anything from the Ministry of Education as far as, if this is, months ago they said that this past year and this current year, school starts in January, so they just started their school year, may just end up being one long year. So if you were in, say, the third grade last year, you're probably going to be in the third grade this year, and at the end of this year, you'll move up to the fourth grade. But I don't know if that's exactly what's going to be going on. I don't know if it's going to be on a school-by-school basis. Obviously, schools in metro areas probably had a little more access to infrastructure to be able to do virtual learning. They also did some stuff on TV. We watched a little bit of it. It was very Sesame Street-ish, with the hopes of the younger kids could at least be exposed to numbers and letters and basic stuff at home on the TV. So hopefully that answered your questions. Okay.
Thank you.
Other questions?
To follow up on that, is this potentially a silver lining to what we're dealing with? For an opportunity like the Methodist school, having been there, a few years myself, I know how difficult transportation can be and how dangerous it is for some of these kids to walk to the school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the question was, is the virtual learning that's been going on going to continue at some level with in-person, given the difficulties that some students have getting to the school, whether that be geographical or weather or whatever it might be? Yes, I think so. I think like everywhere, this people working from home and doing Zoom and all that kind of stuff, I foresee that changing the face of business, the face of school. And yeah, I think it would be, hopefully, an addition to what's already happening in the classroom, where you can maybe get a little more, like, for example, just because it's my point of reference, my wife teaches English. There are students who only get English once a week for like 45 minutes, and the time they get there and calm down, and it's 30 minutes. So the virtual part could very much be something to help do extra, if you will. And definitely the potential for having one-on-one help would be there virtually. For example, say your child is doing some homework and is stumped on how to do something. They can send messages via the platform to the teachers, who can either connect via video or send messages back about what's happening in class, or if they need extra help, to be able to provide that extra help. Yeah.
And to follow up with that, also, one of the things I love about what you guys do, targeting these pockets of the population on the outskirts of town that
Mhm.
don't have a church, is it a potential opportunity, like in La Gloria, to even connect the Methodist school to the church in La Gloria, and maybe periodically send a teacher out there, since they could potentially be learning remotely,
Mhm.
to almost use that as a satellite location for the school.
Yeah. So the question that Brian asked was, is there a potential for us to use the Methodist churches that we have in Awachapan to be kind of like satellite campuses, offering Wi-Fi or something like that, or computers? Right. So that children in those communities would have access to the virtual platforms. Yes. It's been talked about. It's been discussed. I don't want to say we're doing a feasibility study, but we're having discussions with people in the communities to see if that's something that would even work in the particular communities. And obviously, it's a case-by-case situation. We also have to look at how that might negatively affect things in the community. We clearly don't want to cause problems between the church members of the church and the people who live around in the communities. People can get really creative to cause problems. So we have to really look at where we might be if we do this, what the positive and the negative aspects may be. So yes, that's being discussed, but as far as I know, a decision hasn't been made on that. So. Other questions?
So with Ellen's unexpected time here for the 7 months,
Uh-huh.
was she able to continue? I know you said she got sick, so
Right.
I'm not sure where that happened in that process, but was she able to continue virtual
Yeah.
teaching from here?
All right. So the question was, it was my wife, because she was stuck here in the U.S. for 7 months, and she was stuck. That's probably not the best word to use, but she was here in the United States. She was at her mother's house, so it wasn't like she was sleeping in the street or something like that. She was able to have a roof, but yes, she was, because it was virtual. She was able to continue doing classes. She did have surgery, open heart surgery, which is absolutely amazing what they can do nowadays. She went into the hospital on Monday and was back home Friday morning. Yeah, pretty amazing. And a very quick recovery. Within like a week later, she was up walking through the neighborhood. And so she was able to continue doing classes, but she also has 2 volunteers, one through the General Board of Global Ministries as a Global Mission Fellow, and then there's another person who came on their own. So she has 2 people that help her with the classes, because she teaches all the children in the school. There's a little over 500 this year. So it's almost impossible for her to do from 4-year-old pre-K all the way up to the 2nd year of high school is what we have this year. So the chances of her being able to do all of those children by herself is pretty tough. So she did take a week to 10 days where she wasn't teaching, and the other 2 people who were volunteering were able to step up and take on her classes. And I think she may have taken 1 week after that where she was kind of there, and then kind of both was there for some classes, and the other 2 volunteers were helping her with the ones she wasn't able to go to. But yes, thankfully, for that situation, because everything was virtual, she was able to connect to the internet and connect to students. Our cell phones work here, so she was able to continue getting WhatsApp and Messenger stuff and phone calls or whatever else she needed for the kids to be able to turn in work or ask questions. We received the vaccines maybe a month ago, the first batch of vaccines arrived. And just like everywhere else, there's a pecking order as to who is vaccinated first. So I don't know that, because I've not been there in 2 weeks, I don't know if they've finished all the healthcare workers. But it was starting with people working in the hospitals and clinics, and then to frontline workers, the police officers, EMTs, that kind of stuff. Then the elderly and people like me at the very bottom. So yes, we have started to get vaccines. I'm not sure which one it is. It's not the one dose, it's one of the 2-dose ones. But people are getting vaccinated. And the government has also set up walk-through vaccination clinics. Basically, it looks like half of a shipping container with 2 doors. You walk in one door, get your vaccine, and walk out the other door. So they're not overloading the existing medical facilities that are and they're all at health departments. So. Yes, sir.
So as far as your plans for 2021,
Uh-huh.
knowing that we can't send people right away, and then maybe hopefully by the back half of the year we
Right.
can do that. But given that scenario, we can't send people.
Mhm.
How else can we contribute to help you? And what are the major needs that we talked about the school a little bit?
Right.
What else people that you serve?
The question is how might people continue helping the ministries of the church in the absence of teams coming this year. Hopefully that will change sooner than later, because it is important to have the presence of people, the connection between what we're doing and the congregations and the people we're serving and the folks that are coming down is like super important. Relationships are probably the most important part of what we do. So not having teams come, not only has it been kind of slow for me work-wise, but it's also, I mean, I've missed people. You know, you become friends and family, and you get used to seeing them once a year, and they didn't show up last year. So Camilla and I missed seeing, our friends that come every year. But to answer your question, right now, finances is probably the easiest and the best help material-wise that you can send. Obviously, we need everyone's prayers and direction and communication. It really meant a lot to me, the people that have reached out, just checking on us, say, hey, how's things going? Are you guys doing well? What's going on? Kind of thing. And without that connection, it would have been tough for Camilla and I to manage 7 months, just the two of us, without any kind of communication. It would have been very lonely and pretty depressing. We have a list of financial things that we need as soon as possible. I don't want to use the word immediate, but it's stuff for the school. Candler has a very extensive and detailed list of what it is we need and how much for each thing. The things right now are for the new school part that we're building onto. Like I said, there's about 10% left to build. And I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but it's 20,000, 21,000, something like that. And then once they're finished, we have to have desks. We have to have the new stuff that are required by the government for biosecurity, the hand sanitizer and the sanitizer to clean everything, and desks and that sort of thing. And like I said, Candler has all that information. So if you want to see exactly to the item that's needed and how much they cost, she has all that. I don't remember the number as a total. I could probably find it, but.
So I'm going to make copies, and if you want to leave me your email, I can email it to you. If you want to see, it is very detailed. Did Bishop Juan make that?
Yeah, the bishop.
He's
is the one who gave it to me.
very detailed.
Yeah.
Some of it's still in Spanish.
Yeah.
But
So,
yes, I can get that out to everybody.
So just in general for the Methodist school financially, and these are things like filing cabinets and teachers' desks and the desk for the students, et cetera, is $7,049. High school has tracks, so you can study just general, but we also offer nursing. So you'd be like a nurse's assistant when you graduated. Secretarial sciences or business management kind of thing. And there's stuff that's needed for those specifically. The nursing program is new, so it's starting from nothing. And that one's $18,321.42. So yeah, it's very detailed. So financially, those are the needs right away. But the churches still continue trying to do their ministry. We have a food program that we do with food bags. Usually groups go to people's homes and deliver them. But the church has been helping families that nobody worked for 3 months unless you worked at a grocery store or a pharmacy. So we were able to help families out. Didn't have money, but we had food bags, to kind of keep them fed so they weren't hungry, keep them fed. We also have a medical clinic that we normally depend on groups to bring over-the-counter medicines, and medical teams, the medicines they don't dispense, go to the clinic. And it's a $5 charge to see the doctor. And we normally, if we have the medicine, we give it to them for free. We don't have any medicines right now. So the access to the doctor is still available, but you're having to go to the pharmacy and buy your own medicines, which some things are expensive, some things are not. But if it goes to whether or not you feed your family or you get your blood pressure medicine that month, people are going to feed their family. Just the same here. People there on fixed incomes kind of have to pick and choose what it is they spend their money on for the month. So, there's needs all the way around. Candler, like I said, Candler has that detailed list, but we also continue needing stuff for the clinic, money for the clinic to buy medicines. We also have pastoral salaries that is a liability for the conference. I don't know the last 2 months because I didn't ask. The last 2 months of 2020, they were not paid because there was no money to pay them. They were told that beforehand. It wasn't like they went to get their check and it wasn't there.
What's a yearly salary for a pastor?
That's a good question. They get paid about $300 a month, and the church pays for their pension and their social insurance too. So it ends up being $325, $350-ish for total per pastor. We have 12 congregations right now. We have 2 church plants that we're working on, not far from Watchubon. So if you count those, there are 14 churches in the country. So, did I answer your question? I know it's kind of long-winded, but other questions you want to ask?
Want to tell people what we've done so far?
Yeah. What you guys have done specifically?
Yes.
All right. Because you're my favorite team, I remember all of that. I know that you guys have worked on 2 churches, I believe. You worked at El Shaddai, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, because when JP came, we moved a lot of dirt that week. I remember. Yeah, I remember moving dirt. Yeah, we moved a lot of dirt. That's right.
You don't forget moving
See,
dirt.
we like to use the word seasoned, not old. Okay. You guys have also done food distribution. I think every year that you've come, and you guys have been 5 times before. Is that correct? 5. You've also helped with construction work, obviously, with the 2 churches in La Gloria and El Shaddai. The food, you've done Bible school before. You've kept me entertained.
How is La Gloria? Is it finished like that?
La Gloria is completed except for the drop ceiling and the parsonage.
Okay.
But everything else is finished. No, but she has a house up the street, so it's not. But the idea, we started building parsonage because it became apparent to us that we weren't going to have the same pastors forever. So while Pastor Gloria, who lives in La Gloria and serves the church La Gloria, it's really easy to remember. She's from that neighborhood, so as long as she's there, she has a home. If she wanted to live in the parsonage, it's available. If for any reason there became an associate that we brought from somewhere else, they could stay there. And like I said, Gloria may get moved to a new church. She may decide to not be there anymore. Anything could happen. And then we have to bring someone from outside of that neighborhood to that church, and they're going to need a place to live. So.
Not only does she have a home up the street, but that was her dream home.
Yeah.
I'll never forget, because I've done a lot of home visits with Gloria, and she says that she grew up sleeping underneath a mango tree and prayed for a decade for a house with real walls. And so these guys came in and actually built her a home for the church, which is just I believe, just a 4-wall cinder block home.
It is, yeah. Most of the houses we build are 6 meters by 6 meters. About 400 square feet, I think, is what that ends up being. She had a house, and a couple years ago, we build houses. That's one of the projects we do, just real simple. It became apparent to us that we also had pastors who, other than the parsonage, had nowhere to live. So we were able to, several of them had property, which is a requirement for us building a house, so we were able to have teams come and actually build them houses. Gloria specifically was living in a house that was put together with pieces of stuff. I mean, there was some metal roof laminate, there was heavy vinyl, black vinyl plastic, some bamboo. You know, it was just kind of pieced together from whatever was laying around or found. So yeah, several years ago we were able to go and build her own, so for her and Jeremias, her son, their own house with 4 walls, solid walls, right, and a real roof.
The main reason was not because she was like self-serving. She doesn't like snakes.
She doesn't like,
She said,
yeah.
like, 'cause I hate snakes. Because we were sitting there and there was a lady that said that she had just moved an 8-foot snake off of her table.
Huh.
And Pastor Gloria almost, I mean, she just took off. She was like, wait, what? She's like, yes. And that's when she,
So Brian's telling us a story about Pastor Gloria and her dislike for snakes. And that was one of the reasons she needed to have a 4-walled block house. You know, I've lived there for 11 years, and I can probably count on one hand how many times I've seen a snake. So she's lucky, I guess. Or unlucky, however you want to look at it. So. Other questions? So, God willing, people will be able to get vaccinated, and numbers of COVID will go down, and travel will become more fluid. At the moment, you have to have a COVID test within 72 hours to come to the United States and to go into El Salvador. So logistically, that's troubling for people. Also, the idea of not being able to get back and being like Ellen, stuck somewhere for 7 months. You know, I would love to have all of you come and visit my house, but 7 months is a long time to have visitors. So I'm hoping that once those travel restrictions are lifted and the numbers of COVID go down, we'll be able to start hosting teams again. I mean, obviously things are not going to be the same as they have been in the past 5 years. There have to be changes on how we do things, and we'll have to figure that out as we go. But God willing, this year those teams can start coming back. Hopefully by summer, and if not by summer, by the fall. So it'd be great to see all of you there. Sorry?
maybe bring our own chairs to the home visits.
Bring your own chairs to the home visits. Sure. We'll strap one on your back.
All right.
All right, no further questions for us today? We're good? All right, well then we will end this meeting, and the next one will be at 1 o'clock, and then there will also be one at 5 o'clock. And Brian will also be here for the services tomorrow. So lots more opportunities to hear about mission work in El Salvador. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys for coming and asking good questions.
Are we clear?